The condition is really crazy condition.
And that shouldn't give away the whole secret to professional windsurfing.
Maciek giving Antoine elbow a run for his body. Here we go. What a finish!
The guy is kind of talking bullshit.
The team's just got to work a little harder.
Welcome to the Windsurfing Podcast, back again for episode 22. And this week, we have another British rider. He learnt his craft on a small duck pond outside London. He went on to win numerous British titles, a European title, and was ranked right up there when freestyle was really getting going. We talk tour stories, we talk about the early freestyle days, we talk about lake sailing, and we talk about how he's now learnt his craft. He's now a head designer for one of the big brands, and he's really involved in the R&D. We talk about who he learnt his craft off. And we go much more into the future and what is going on right now. Who is it? Well, it is, of course, John Skye.
John, how you doing, man?
All good, and you?
Yeah. All right. Not too bad. You're in Gran Canaria, even though you look like you're in polar circle, no? Arctic circle.
Yeah. These special effects.
Yeah. If I look at your Instagram lately, except for the throwbacks, for the nice wave sailing throwbacks, you're like almost a slalom sailor now, or a slash foiler slash free rider slash winger.
Yeah.
With that.
Just trying to do everything, like I think now more than anything, especially being kind of like kind of stuck a little bit on the island, and there's less chance to kind of mix it up. And for me now, it's so good to have so many different things to do. But it's a bit too much. Like my van's totally full, and I get to the beach, it's like I don't know whether to go foil or surf or wing or wind or slalom or waves, or so kind of trying to keep it all, or trying to do it all. It's a bit too much sometimes, but it's good because there's so much to do and so much fun to have and so much to learn as well. So
okay, so now a question that is probably impossible to answer, but let's say you have a perfect day for all of them. How would you rank them? Like if you know that you have, I don't know, 5-6 different spots around, and like you can do any discipline, any sport, any whatever. What do you
still like wave sailing, especially if it's good, is still the number one by quite a long way. And then I always think surf foiling should be up there, but it's so hard. And every time I go on the water, I think I'm going to be like Kyleni ripping around. And then every time I go out there, the reality is a bit different. So that's quite high on the list. And surfing as well. Like a good day surfing is pretty magic. And they're quite rare. So that'd be quite up there as well. Slalom probably like a little bit lower, just because here you can basically do it every single day. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's not so magic, but yeah, I love it. Like today I was out on the 6.2, like sick feeling, going like flat stick and yeah. So that's, yeah, it's good. Just, I really like just to mix it all up. Like I grew up like in the UK where everything's like kind of always different and every day is different and you never sort of get 2 days the same. And it's one of the things I struggled a bit when I came here, was like that it is just always kind of like the same through the summer. It's like every day, windy, kind of the same angle. You get better days, you get worse days, but it's kind of like always the same. And I kind of like miss that bit of variety that they used to get. But so it's kind of like getting that variety through different sports, and with different sports you get different spots, and trying to mix it all up.
Yeah, from what I understand, you're kind of from a lake, no? You're like a flat water boy.
Yeah. I grew up on Brogborough Lake, and like really like in the middle of England. Like
so great variety there.
Yeah, not so much there. Like later on was where the variety came. Like in the lake was like anti-variety, but but then still like you know, you kind of never know what the day is going to bring there. So it's kind of like, you know, you go and sometimes it's windy, sometimes it's not. And so within that, you sort of get like, it's different. And I think that kind of makes it, people that live, you know, when you live somewhere like England or probably in Poland as well, and you always sort of like, I wish it was windy every day, which for sure you do. But then when you get wind every day, those days sort of, they somehow lose their magic. And actually that one windy day every 2 weeks in Poland or in England or wherever you are becomes so much more magic because it's that one day and you know that, oh, this is it. And you go there and you sail like till your hands are bleeding and you can't come. You can't go anymore. And then like, yeah, whereas like here you don't get that. It's just like, it's kind of windy all the time. And
yeah, but at the same time, if you want to progress, it's
no, it's not like a complaint. It's just like a sort of a different mentality, and kind of like it's what I miss a bit because I have wind pretty much every day. I miss that kind of like that search and that special day, and
then if you moved back to the UK, you would be like, fuck, it's always raining and it's never windy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but what is it like? Like a lot of the UK guys are from lakes and stuff, like middle of the, like you, I think Profits also didn't grow up at the beach. Not sure about Swifty, like he traveled a lot, but
Swifty was always abroad. So
yeah, but all you guys, it doesn't seem like, you know, like I'm from Gwydion or whatever the, you know, popular spot is, you know, it's like always.
Well, I think one of the advantages of sort of growing up like on a lake is it's like really easy to learn. The beginning stages are super easy. Like now I'm trying to sort of like, you know, starting to think about teaching my kids, and here it's actually quite hard to find that like nice place where you can just sort of play in the water and have fun and go windsurfing and enjoy it. And whereas like on my lake, it was like perfect. You just jump in, you go swimming if you want, and grab your sail, go sailing a bit. There's also like a really good scene, and especially like back where I was growing up, it was like there was like a good racing scene from every level, you know, from when I was just sort of like just beginning really. There was like the Wednesday night racing, which was like the lowest level, and then you kind of progress through that, and then they had a Sunday series, which was like, you know, in my eyes at that time was like the mega pro, you know. And then from that they had like the regional series, and you sort of have all these stepping stones that kind of, okay, back then it was all like longboard racing, but it's still, you kind of have that progression towards getting better. And I think sometimes it's quite hard if you're living by the sea and just going wave sailing, for example. There isn't that easy ladder towards getting better or to progressing in terms of contests. And I'm pretty sure Ben had the same kind of like upbringing, like, you know, racing and then, you know, getting to a higher level, and then you start to go in different directions. But that kind of fundamental background is all there, like trying to progress through contest, really.
Yeah. With this answer, we established two things. One is that everybody should look at your Instagram when you're taking Lily, I believe your 6 or 7 year old with you with a little boom. That's freaking amazing. Like that's like that.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. I got a bit scared actually, but yeah.
And the second one is that you're freaking old, because longboard racing sounds like a different era, doesn't it? But
yeah.
So my question is, how fast did you actually climb through these ranks? Like, you know, you, like you say, you're growing up, it feels impossible, and then a couple of years later you're like bored of this kind of Sunday series, isn't it?
Yeah, no, like I started pretty late compared with lots of people, and so I did all the stuff, like, you know, I was Wednesday night, then Sunday, the Sunday lower league, then the Sunday higher league, then the regional, then national, and that was all on longboards then. And it was when so what year would it have been? That would have been around like 95, 96, somewhere around there. And it was when shortboards had started on the PWA to sort of dominate the course racing. But obviously on a lake, it's like gusty, and So I spent my whole time trying to win races on my shortboard, and I think I managed it once when it was about like, 50 knots, and even then it was like you'd get a good lead, and then the wind would just completely drop, and you just stop dead, and and the rest would come past you. But yeah, it was always like kind of my dream to be on the shortboard. But yeah, the reality was like longboarding was what it was back then. And then I carried that, and then kind of like it was when I was 17, basically, or more like 18. When I was 18 and I learned to drive, then suddenly it opened up the world to me. Like before I was like stuck on this lake, and I basically didn't really sail on the sea until I was 18. And that's when, as soon as I got my driving license, I was just like, right. And I went to the coast, and then that was when almost started again from zero. I thought I was quite good, and then kind of went to the sea and just got annihilated in the shore brace and broke everything, and just had to sort of, reset and start again. And
yeah, it's really, I kind of miss all these levels of this ladder right now. Like I feel like a lot of the guys just don't know how to even start competing and stuff, because some places have some national tours, but you don't really have regionals, except for maybe, I don't know, I think Netherlands have regionals, but it's kind of like the national tour anyway. You have some PWA guys competing.
I think it's definitely easier in slalom and racing in general. There's like much more of like a progression, but I see like if you're like a young wave sailor, there's like, it's really, really hard, like really hard to make a jump from, maybe you're the king of the beach or whatever, and then where do you go from that? It's like, unless you've got a good national tour, it's really hard. And like now there's like the junior kids thing in the PWA, which is great, but they're really, really young. And certainly for me, like I say, I didn't even go on the sea until I was like 18. So for me, by the time I could do a forward loop, I would have already been outside the juniors. And I thought, if I would turn up at a junior event at 18, just about being able to do a forward loop, and there's like Marino at 17 doing like doubles and like ripping, or Philip at 15 doing everything. And so it's like, I see it must be really hard as a kid now, unless you're growing up in a good place to make that jump. But
yeah, I agree for sure.
We were super lucky actually in the UK, and I think it's one of the reasons why, like kind of in our generation, we had like, there was a really quite a big group of UK guys that all came through at the same time, like myself, Ben Profit, obviously. Swifty's sort of a little bit of a special case, but like Ross in waves, Chris Audsley, John Hibbard, like a whole bunch of us. And that was really because we had like at the time, an amazing UK tour. We had like 4 or 5 events, all in good places. Like most of them were like, 4 days to a week, so we could always get good conditions. And it was prize money and stuff like that. And that gave us like a pretty good base. Like I started my first wave event, did the amateurs and ended up winning the amateur tour, I think in 98 or 99. And then, that was like a stepping stone to then going to the UK Pro Tour. And then, and like that, you carry on with the sort of stepping stone towards the final goal. But, without that tour, I think it would have been pretty tricky.
Yeah, for sure. And still UK is probably one of the best ones. Like you have that, I don't know, this year probably not, but generally, you have these events, and it looks really, really cool. But my thing is, I remember talking to Ethan Vestera, who's like, I think he was born in like 2002 or something. No, 98, 97, whatever. And I told him like, fuck man, you because he freestyles really well, and I was like, I wish I could do that, because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a freestyler, because, these magazines, and there was this big boom, which actually you were a part of, and whatever. And he's like, well, you couldn't go to YouTube to check the moves. And I'm like, no, man, there was no YouTube. So for you guys, what was the inspiration, and how did you actually improve the level as a group, I guess, because as you mentioned, you had that whole generation.
Me, it was just videos. Like, you know, when I was like really young, like 13, I guess, like 13, 14, that I used to watch. There was like my two favorite Neil Pride videos, the Rigmarole one and Instant Replay, which was just like Bjorn just being the king and dominating and flying around on
VHS.
slalom gear. Yeah, VHS, yeah. Flying around on slalom gear, just doing like massive jumps and just kind of like having fun windsurfing. And then there was Heart and Soul from Gastra. They're all the Robert Masters productions, which at the time for me they're still probably the best videos. Just short, sharp, like action and super cool. And then after that, it was like the Polakau video, the Goya video, the PWA videos, and you know that was kind of, you know, I watched certainly those Neil Pride videos. I watched them so much that they were like worn out. And the Polakau one, there's like one sick turn he does that we rewound and watched so many times at uni that it's now all like glitchy, you know, when you watch it, it's like because it's like all the tape's worn out. So it's just like a different thing. Like now, you know, now there's almost like too much content, you know, and you know, I think certainly you see like the edits from Browsinho, and in a way they're wasted because, you know, you just like sit there and you grab your phone and you just like watch them on your phone and they're insane, you know, they're like the best stuff ever. And it's just like, and then you just watch it and then flick it away with your thumb and it's gone. And
yeah,
you know, to a degree, I wish they'd like make a sick browsy video like the Polakau one, and
with a little bit of character, a little bit of lifestyle. I told him like, and he's like, yeah, it's a shame we're using like $100,000 cameras and then you watch it on a 5-inch screen on your. I'm like, fuck, do something about it, you know?
Yeah.
And then it makes me not want to publish any wave sailing because it's so good that it just makes you look like a cook.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane.
My best turn I've ever got on camera, and that's like he's got in one of those little edits he has, which is literally, I think, just someone filming him while he goes sailing for 10 minutes. And like every one of his turns is better than my best ever turn ever. So
yeah. So you progress through all these ranks and all this, you know, and then it's time to kind of make a choice. Was professional windsurfing even on the like a possibility for you when you decided to go to university, or was it a choice, or was it clear that you're gonna go to uni and, you know, not really chase that?
I mean, at the time I went to uni, I was like so far away from being a pro windsurfer, you know, miles away. Like, I think when I started uni, I just sort of like learned to do a forward loop, which, you know, you certainly done on the tour, just doing a forward loop on starboard tack and not being able to wave ride or do nothing. And yeah, I was miles away. So I went to uni, and that was really, you know, that's where I learned so much for windsurfing, both in studies. Like the studies I did were sort of like all windsurfing related, so it was quite good. And then and just sailed a lot. No, I was at Southampton.
Okay, because until this day, Plymouth has this maritime science thing where there is a little bit of surfing, a little bit of yachting, a little bit of windsurfing, diving, all these kind of things, you know.
Yeah. Mine was more like mine was more yacht based than boat based, but at every opportunity, kind of like I applied it to windsurfing. So whenever we had like a project, I'd be like, right, I'm going to do mine on windsurfing, which kind of helped me because there's no like literature on it, so I could just write whatever I wanted and kind of like justify it. And I did like, we had like one, we had to do like a yacht design, like basically it was like yacht aesthetics, it was called, the course. And we had to kind of like basically make a yacht look good. And all these guys, you know, they made these classic, like beautiful looking yachts. And I didn't have a clue. So I basically copied, you remember the Neil Pride zone that Polakau had that had like the little arrows on the, or no, it was the heat wave that had the little arrows on the back. So I basically just ripped off, like, you know, on the jib of the sail, I had like the Neil Pride zone, and on the mainsail I had like the heat wave from the year before or something like that. And then the guy was just like, "Whoa, that's so like radical. That's the most innovative thing I've ever seen." And it's like, well, just don't open a windsurf mag. And but kind of like yeah, that kind of got me. I enjoyed my course and it got me through it. And all the time, I was just windsurfing every day, and I was living with 4 windsurfers, and we were just like living, breathing, windsurfing, just watching the videos, and just and that kind of like drove everything forward.
So you apply the same philosophy in your RD sail designing as you did in that class?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. No, it's quite funny because at the time when I was doing that, like, everyone was taking the piss out of it, basically, "Oh, what are you doing at uni? You're doing colouring in and all this sort of thing." And it was like a bit, that particular unit was like pretty much a joke. But then actually now, like, what is it, 20 years later, like one of the most important things in my job is actually making sure that the sail looks good when it, if it works, it's got to work well, but then it's also got to look good. And if it doesn't look good, no one's going to buy it. So actually the colouring in class was actually quite productive now 20 years later.
Yeah. So if you don't like how the RD sails look, here's your guy. Send him an email. Yeah. We'll put the email right on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, go for it. Send me your comments.
Yeah. Okay, so you finish uni and then you're kind of good enough to go on tour.
No, still nowhere near.
Yeah, but somehow back then, because I don't know why everybody was so relaxed or whatever, but it doesn't seem like it progressed as fast as it did maybe 10 or 15 years later. You know what I mean? Like freestyle in, I don't know, I remember watching something from 2001 or 2002, I think. And it was like, you did a forward both ways, you did a Vulcan, maybe you did a Spock, and then you did like, I don't know, a carving 360 or an upwind 360 or a duck jibe, whatever, something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was still, you say like, I just could forward, but it was actually something,
Yeah. No, I think we did really well. Like, whilst I was at uni, we went every summer. We went and spent the summer in Fuerte, and just like literally we were camping on the North Shore. We'd rent like a little panda each, or like a panda between 2 of us, and there was like 4 of us, so we had 2 pandas, just camping on the beach, just sailing every day, like wave sailing. And then we actually went down for the Fuerte freestyle, and it was right when they just started doing Vulcans. I think the Spock hadn't come out yet, and we went there and we saw the Vulcan, and we were like, okay. And then being young and like super into it, we then just like, I remember just going to the north and just basically learning it on both tacks. And, that at the time was like the move, and it just kind of like that little watching that and then having the time and the conditions to learn it sort of straight away while it's fresh in the memory, just put me straight onto like kind of like in a way the top level freestyle. And then when the Spot came out, I think I was like, I'm not sure if me or Swifty, but we were both learned Spots more or less at the same time, and we were the first people in England to ever do a Spot. And it kind of like was the moment when like there were all the older guys that were quite established in the UK, and it's kind of what set us apart. And we were doing freestyle and we were young, so we were learning it all really quickly. And so that the freestyle was what like gave me my kind of like my ticket into pro windsurfing, and just by being, I think, a little bit of luck at the right place at the right time, and then following it and being into it, and coming from a lake, like flat water was, I'd sort of been dreaming of doing all that freestyle stuff since I was 12, but it wasn't invented then. So suddenly it was like, wow, this is what I've been waiting for forever, and here it is. So I'm going to try and learn it.
Yeah. So then you can Spock, you go on tour and you pass a couple heats, and you get all this cash thrown at you because freestyle is kind of the new thing. You're one of the new guys. Obviously, there was a lot of new guys back then because you came on with like kind of guys a little younger than you, like Ricardo and Cowley.
No, a lot younger.
Yeah.
Like I think I was like 23 when I first like went on on the tour properly. And so I basically, my first event ever was the same first event ever as Ricardo, and I think it was Swifty's second event. So I think Ricardo was 14. I think he's like more or less 10 years younger than me. Swifty maybe like 8 years younger. Then there was like Cowley, again like kind of 7 years younger. So it was like a whole bunch of like kids, and then me. But then also I looked really, really young, so I got like dumped with them, which ended up being pretty beneficial. You know, I think I'm like 6 months younger than Kevin Pritchard or something like that. You know, we're basically the same age, but he was like this sort of like old school, and you know, by 24 he had done it all and was almost retiring. And I was coming along with like this new school with all these kids, and actually my first contract with F2, I didn't negotiate. It was from like the UK importers, and they were there and they were like dealing with it all. And the guy was like, "So yeah, he's really young, isn't he? Like 16, 17, 18." They were like, "Yeah, something like that." And it was like, you know, I was like 23, 24, and but I think where, you know, I was coming, I said, you know how it is, like sometimes you're just at that stage where often it's about motivation and what you're learning and how you're progressing, and more than your actual age is like where you're at. So
yeah, like a young 23. Like I'm a young 28 right now.
yeah. But
yeah, but this must have been fun. Or I mean, you get dumped with these guys and then your careers are kind of linked, you know, and then you start traveling with them, you start becoming friends with them. Like you say, you know, like you would be the same age as Kevin Pritchard, but Kevin Pritchard is training, is serious, is, you know, with Phil McGain and whatever, while you are there with the Monkey and with Swifty and with Cowley and Toma Traversa and Anthony.
yeah, I was one of the best things. Like I went to Maui, I guess 2003 maybe, and I went with a load of English guys, and then they all went home, and I was like, I really wanted to stay, and we've been working out there like cutting hedges and all sorts. So I got enough money, so I was like, right, I'm gonna just stay as long as I can until the visa runs out. And I ended up staying with Cowley and Conan and a couple of other Brazilian guys. And I barely knew Cowley at the time. I'd like met him, I think, once in Costa Brava, and we'd been sailing a bit during Maui. And he was like, "Oh yeah," I was like, "Oh, I need someone to stay." He's like, "Oh, we got somewhere to stay," and that was like the best thing ever, because you know, Cowley's just like a legend, and he like so friendly, so kind of like just wanting everyone to come in. And so like I ended up cruising with him, and then we were sailing every day at Camp 1 with Ricardo, who was living there, and Dione. So without really knowing it, I was like training freestyle with Ricardo, Dione and Cowley, who were basically the best guys in the world. And they were pretty much kicking my ass. You know, at that time, I remember we were trying to learn flackers, and, you know, I spent basically a month just eating it on the flackers, just eating it. And they were getting them, and I was like, I was pretty down on it. And then I sort of got them at the end, and then I turned up at the first event, which was Gran Canaria, and it was basically those two and me that could do it. And suddenly, you know, like ended up suddenly one of the best. You know, I was behind them, but they were so far ahead that me being just behind them put me like ahead of everyone else. So, and that's kind of more or less how it all kicked off, really. I did Gran Canaria, I think I came 6th, and then went to Fuerte straight after, and ended up 4th, and then that put me 2nd in the world behind Ricardo. And this was like my first year on tour, and I was like, I remember going home and I was like wandering around London, just
This is
like,
easy.
in a haze, just going like, no, it's more just like just in absolute shock, you know, like thinking back to being sat in my classroom in the middle of England looking at pictures of Bjorn or whatever, and going like, well, wow, I want to do that. And then suddenly being 2nd in the world. It didn't last very long. That was like pretty much it's been downhill ever since. But you know, to got that was enough to convince the sponsors I was worth supporting, and it all kind of became easier after that.
Yeah. So then there is a bunch of, you knew this question was coming. There is a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-olds and you traveling around the world for freestyle. And I talked to Thomas about this traversa, and he was like, yeah, we were this group, and Cowley was the focused one. Ricardo also wanted to kind of win, but the rest of us, we were there for the good times. So
Yeah.
were you the grandpa in the class, or were you? Because
really
from
bad
what I know, I will not let you slide with this. You were, let's say, right in the middle of it all.
Yeah, but you have to. I grew up with a normal English childhood, from 15 or probably a bit younger, just getting pissed every weekend as English people do, going to the pub, and that was kind of what I knew. And then suddenly then you're on tour in these nice places with proper parties going off, and yeah, for sure I enjoyed it. I think most of the time when I look back, most of the time it was partying in the right times. I don't think too many times I was not the sort of guy that got hammered the day before the epic forecast and turns up for a heat straight from the club. That wasn't me, but I definitely went hard. And I think I was a pretty bad influence on. I know that the first time Cowley got really pissed was down to me, and definitely we had a lot of fun and a lot of parties. And
what's the best story you can share?
I think one of the best ones was my first actually my first two best results were both after these massive parties, and both by accident. So in Ireland, I managed to get a wild card, and this was before the freestyle thing. So it was the year before I got a wild card into Ireland, because it was there was a national event linked to it, and there was no wind a week, and then there was no wind forecast. And I can't remember whose birthday. It was someone's birthday, Nick Baker or something like that. Anyway, everyone went out and got hammered, really, really hammered. And the event was sponsored by Red Bull. So there was just crates of Red Bull. So everyone's just vodka Red Bull, smashing it. Anyway, the next day, I get woken up by my phone at dying. And they're like, where are you? And I'm I'm home. And then they're like, you have to get to the beach. It's windy. It's it's what? And where I was, it was no wind at all. It was glassy in front of the house. But in Ireland, there's if it's southwest at a certain angle with a bit of sun, it accelerates through the mountains. And it was cross off. And I turned up at the beach and I couldn't even rig my sail. And Swifty, who I think was 14 at the time, can you rig for me? He rigs my sail for me. And I went out, and that was I got through something 3 heats. I beat Anders Bringdale, and then I went against Scott Fenton for 5th place, and ended up losing basically on a tie break, and then just died and then Fuerta, the first freestyle good result I had was we went to the opening set. I knew Pete Volwater from the photo shoots, so it was my first event. So I was Pete, I'm looking for someone to stay. Can I stay with you? He's yeah, sure. I didn't really know Pete that well at the time.
He was amazing like that. He was so inclusive. My first event, he also took me Yeah.
So then we go to the opening ceremony, which as you know, it's in the tent, the Carpa. 9 o'clock is the presentation or something. So they do all the talking, and then at 9:30 or whatever, I go to Pete. I go, all right, should we go back now? We're competing tomorrow. And he's it's really early. Let's just stay, have a couple of drinks, and then let's 11 o'clock we go back. Oh yeah, that sounds cool. So I go off and I'm whatever, and then at 11 o'clock I'm okay, where's Pete? I go looking for him and kind of tap him on the shoulder. All right, Pete, should we go now? And he turns around, he's yeah, and he's absolutely smashed full power. It's oh my god. And then we ended up just full power again, just smashed it out till whatever, 2 or 3 in the morning. And then again the next day I'm dying with a hangover, and somehow get through all my heats and ended up in the semi-final against Josh Stone at the time. And so they were at the beginning, I thought, because whenever I always struggled a bit with the pressure of it all, and it seemed that when I was hungover, you that pressure goes away. So then there was a couple of times where I thought, oh, I'll try it. But if you do it on purpose, it doesn't work. It has to kind of be this sort of like accidental, you know, you can't just go and get really pissed and then turn up the next day and expect to do well. But if it all goes out of control and then it's a different story.
Yeah,
but
it's good it didn't work on purpose. That would have been pretty pathological, I guess.
Yeah.
Not the best example, probably. But
no, definitely.
I know you also love a prank. I think me and you had a couple back and forths, but I remember there was something, but I don't remember what it was. But what was the best one you've seen on tour? Like, I think from your times, guys, I remember Anthony Rennes duct taped onto like
I think the best one was
onto a fence.
The iguana in Swifty's boom bag. That's like, I think that's got to be one of the best ones. I think it was Ricardo that did it. I'm not sure that when we're in Bonaire doing the freestyle event, and I don't know where it came from, but this like massive dead iguana, like suddenly turned up, and it was like people were putting it in board bags, and it was like, and we're talking like big, like maybe up to a meter with its tail, you know, like a big thing. And I think one time, like I opened my board bag at some point, and it's like this dead iguana in there. It's like like this. And anyway, like Ricardo stuffed it in Swifty's boom bag on the last day, and from Bonaire you go into the US before going home, and basically you can imagine the guys in the X-ray in the airport looking for bomb. They got these like bags coming past and whatever. They're looking to see if there's like whatever's in there. And then like a boom bag goes through with this like giant iguana lying there, and they ended up like incinerating the boom bag. And it was like, I think it was, you know, I think 6 carbon X9 booms with all his extensions and fins and everything, and an iguana, and the whole lot got incinerated. And
yeah, that's a good one.
Funny.
That's a good one. But I also heard one. I'm not sure if it was you, but it would sound like you. Peeing into somebody's back pocket at a party.
No, that's probably Timo. That's Timo's right up Timo's hour. Yeah,
that's
his special move when the way he stood at the bar, like somewhere like Tyree. We used to have like the event in Tyree was always like really fun because it was I think for most people there it was like an all-round event. You know, you didn't have to, but pretty much you had to perform on the water and then perform in the bar as well. And it was like, you know, the overall winner was more or less the guy that could do it all. And we used to get so messed up there. And Timo's favorite trick was to stand at the bar, you know, when everyone stood there queuing for the beer, and he'd just literally pull out and put piss in their pockets. But yeah, I never did that. It's not.
Yeah, you want to come out as the nice guy, but what I'm sure of is that when you had your episode as the PWA media person, or the guy that was writing the live ticker or writing the reports you did pull out your phone or your computer at the party and start going. You know how the live ticker goes, like usually it goes like, I don't know, 15:26, good start for heat 6, whatever. It was like 00:26. Antoine is ordering his 4th round.
I did that. I don't recall that. It's quite possible. Did I definitely do that?
Yeah, you did. I'm pretty sure you did. I heard that from multiple sources.
Okay.
Like 1:22. Finian is going for it.
It's quite like that.
I think it was at some slalom event, like Turkey or something.
Yeah, I did. I was press officer. Like they called me in an emergency for a couple of slalom events. I think I did Costa Brava and Turkey. So I could well have been Turkey in the afternoon, I reckon. Sounds like.
Yeah, because there's this happy hour.
It was really fun, actually. I really enjoyed that. Just like being like the kind of like trying to get the inside scoop and look for interesting angles.
Yeah, basically what I'm trying to do now, and you're not giving it to me. So.
Yeah, more or less. I wasn't very good at the actual reporting. Like I think the the good start stuff was not so great, but the rest of it was quite good. I remember that there was something like, Micah had a lot of chickens. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
He kept chickens or something.
Okay, let's move on to the serious stuff. You didn't really want to elaborate too much there, so I guess it's the wife and the kids and all that. Serious. Maybe I'll be serious one day as well.
It was definitely like a lot of fun, and
shaving people's eyebrows and things like this.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I was definitely like the dad of the kids. Like I remember at one point we were in a house with Cowley, Ricardo, Dione, and we had like Goyito and Cheo, and Goyito was super, super young at that time. Like, I want to say like 13 or something. And I remember like Goyito and Cheo, they had this trick where they would like do this long range pierce where they'd kind of like hold it and then explode their pierce, and they could shoot like about 10 meters. And I was trying to get in the house, and they're like, "No, you can't come in." And they were like stood at the door trying to shoot me. And every time I came near them, they'd try and shoot me with their pierce. Yeah. And I was kind of like the responsible one looking after them all.
Yeah, but that must have been fun. So yeah, you mentioned you were on F2. And I only mentioned this because you were mentioned in his podcast, but your shaper was Patrick, and I know you guys worked quite closely together. So
yeah,
your best. Well, yeah, I know. Like, it was funny after you listened to his podcast, you didn't feel like he gave you enough credit, maybe.
No, Patrick is like. No matter what how you argue with Patrick, he's always right at the end. Like no matter what, it's like somehow you walk away going like, oh, okay, yeah. But no, it was really fun actually. I think because like I didn't know when we first started, I didn't know really anything about board design, and he was sort of in the learning process. But I had this background of like I'd done like sort of like yacht design, yacht construction. So I had like a good base of, I wasn't just like the idiot coming in, and I think he sort of straight away took me seriously when I could sort of talk about like particularly like materials and maybe better ways of producing stuff or whatever. But I remember one trip to Lake Garda where I think I was there for maybe a week, 10 days, something like that. And we basically spent a week or 9 days arguing. Just arguing. I was saying, like, I really want this. No, you want that. You want this. Yeah, no. And then until
somehow it always gets personal with him.
Yeah. It's just like it's an argument. It's not like with other people we discuss stuff. With him, you argue stuff. You argue, and until kind of like my flight's leaving at 5:00 and we got to leave at 4:00. So more or less at 3:30, he's like, right, okay. So what do we do? This, and this. Okay, yeah, okay, good. And we did it, and yeah, we came up with like I think it was, I can't remember which was the first one, the Gorilla or the Rebel. They were the same board more or less, but yeah, we made the base of his wave boards, and I think they've been, it's only recently that he's really changed them dramatically from what they were from the work we did back then. But he won't admit that.
Yeah,
he knows it.
So I guess you're not getting your royalties on that.
No, not from him. But it was really good. Like I think one of the nice things with Patrick is he does argue it, and he does always have to be right. But at the same time, he does sort of like share. He shares everything, all his knowledge. He doesn't hold anything back, and that's really refreshing because like some people when you talk to, they hold their knowledge, and in the end, I think so much of being a windsurfer is just like gaining all the knowledge you can and then sort of filtering it and taking the bits that are useful and then like that you build your knowledge base and yeah.
And the base and the understanding of how these things work on like a very basic level is really important. And Patrick has this thing that, if you spend a night in the van with him, he would just explain you like basically the basics.
Explaining you everything, and
And I got quite a bit of that as well for sure. But you, okay, whatever. No, nothing. So then, if you have all this background in board design, you know, from the yachting and from how the hell do you end up a sail designer, which are actually fast forward 20 years from where we were, you are now.
Yeah, well, like all the yachting stuff I did was like everything. It covered. We had like sail theory as well. So, but not that that's really. I don't think anything I learned from that is particularly relevant. But I think certainly the way of looking at things and the way of like kind of studying it and putting it all together is quite useful. But no, I think it started like I was kind of involved in various sail development the whole way through, like with arrows, you know, working with a little bit with Willie Blau in Australia, did some testing with Nash and just sort of like, you know how it is, like you just end up testing stuff as a pro windsurfer. And then it was more or less, it was when kind of like F2 died, and then I ended up like I was on a mix and match. I was on Nash sails and RD boards. Both brands were kind of like pushing me to go all in on their brand. Like, so it was either, you know, Nash boards and sails or RD boards and sails. And Roberto really was pushing his whole project. He really wanted to, at the time RD had like, I think like 2 sails, I think, or maybe 3. They're basically an entry-level freeride sail and a wave sail, and he really wanted to build that up, you know, to turn it more into a sail brand. So he kind of really sold me on that project. And at the beginning, my job was mainly as it was supposed to be as like a tester and to sort of help with development. And I did sort of 3 years of that. And it went really well because, like, you know, in the beginning, it's very easy when you just start using stuff to realize to pick up on things like, you know, this boom, our wave boom doesn't actually fit our small wave sail because it's 145 and the boom of that is 140. So, you know, the boom needs to be 140 so it fits all the sail. Like things like that are really obvious, but unless you're really like studying it and into it and using it, some of the things you don't notice so much. So I did that, and I did 3 years of that, and straight away we started to get a much better product. And then basically Roberto came to me and he was like, right, you know, we need a sail designer. I want you to do it. I want you to start learning it. And it was more or less like out of the blue like that. And at the time, our sails were designed by Thomas Pearson from Simmer. So more or less, I started like an apprenticeship with him. And I don't know if you've worked with him at all. He's like one of the nicest guys and very like Patrick in the sense like that he just was sharing everything. He wasn't holding anything back. He was just super helpful. And, you know, in the early stages, it would be like, okay, you know, like whatever, I want to open the top of the leech. How can I do that? And he'd be like, okay, you know, you can change this and this. And it's like, okay. And then he would do it. And then that then later became like me saying, oh, I want to open the top of the leech. I've done this. Is that right? And he'd be like, yeah, but when you do that, maybe you need to look at this and this as well. And then that then developed into me doing it all and just passing it through him and saying, oh, does this look all right? And he'd be like, yeah. Until in the end, I was just sort of doing it all. And just like when I had like a question or a doubt, I would go back to him. And yeah,
basically
like that.
You put the man out of the job, pretty much.
Yeah, that is true. I do feel a little bit bad for that. Like this, you know, that's how things go sometimes. Like he at the same time didn't have time to do everything. So, you know, for RRD, we couldn't really move forward using him because he was full time with Simmer, and at the time he was like bringing out the board range and all the rest of it. And so, you know, I think it kind of worked out all right. He still talks to me, so I think it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Right.
So then
yeah.
Obviously you need to learn to design, because one thing is modify what you mentioned, like,
yeah,
okay, let's open the top of the leech. Okay, let's put more laugh curve or more seam shaping here, there, whatever.
Yeah.
Even as dumb as I am, I can half do that. But then you need to kind of learn to design, right? So what does that process involve? Obviously, you need to probably work on a program that the factory works on, like in terms of
Yeah.
software, right? And then, yeah, what kind of knowledge do you need, Do you start
Yeah, well,
modifying the things on the computer rather than just sewing them, or how does it even start?
hello. So you broke up a bit then.
Yeah, so how does it even start to become, a sale designer? Like, how do you go from modifying things to actually designing from scratch, right? So how do you need to learn
Yeah,
the
well, like,
software, you need to, obviously the
yeah.
software is chosen for you because the designs are on a certain software and you kind of stuck with that. And what kind of software is it? And, like, how much of it is, I don't know, geometry? How much knowledge do you have to have? Or is it, yeah.
Well, like in the beginning, we had just like, it was like all the sales were just like in an Excel sheet. They were just numbers, and that actually worked really well for me because like I've always been quite number based. I've always been definitely better at maths, for example, than I was at sewing. So for me to start with all these numbers, I found it quite easy, or relatively easy, to kind of get my head around it and what was going on. And then I learned how, like, I'd done a fair bit of like AutoCAD stuff at uni, but we're talking like 20 years before. So it's like pretty basic back then. So one of the first things I did was spend a lot of time like relearning like AutoCAD and things like that, so I could start to convert those numbers into the picture, which is what the factory did. So that was kind of like a process of like connecting the numbers to what was actually happening. And then later on, they actually introduced like a proper program that sort of basically did all that for you. In terms of like the design and stuff, like, I think there's very little that you actually do from scratch, like, so for example, the 3-batten sail, which was something that we did from scratch effectively, but you start off with, like a 4-batten sail and take a batten away and rearrange it and go from there. And then once you've got like a kind of base, I mean, as I remember, the first 3-batten sail that came was like, I took it to Poser to rig it up, and it was like just a disaster, like just totally wrong. And I remember rigging it up on the beach, and there was like this just random guy on holiday there, and he comes up and he goes like, "Oh, that doesn't look good, does it?" And I'm like, "No, it's the first one, it's like something completely from zero." Like, he's like, "I think that's wrong up there, isn't it?" I was like, "Yeah, that's definitely wrong. Yeah, that
Lesson
bit's
learned,
wrong."
no?
Like,
Not lesson learned to rig them in the
yeah,
garage.
yeah. So, but then like then you take that and then you modify it, and then pretty quickly you get it to what you want, and move forward from there. So, I think certainly from my way of looking at things, it's like, yeah, everything's just more or less like a modification of something. And sometimes those modifications are really, really radical, which you could say like a redesign, I guess. But in the end, you're taking lots of components from something else and putting them in, like sometimes crossing 2 sails over or things like that.
Yeah. So if you had to design something from scratch, then you'd rather, I don't know, if you were to design a slalom sail, which I know you did almost from scratch lately.
Yeah.
You'd start with your free race design and then go from there. Yeah, you would never
exactly that.
draw a new laugh curve, put in totally new, because it's just yeah.
So like, the race sail is something that pretty much we designed from zero. We had one before that was made in a different factory, and kind of like didn't have control over it. So then about like 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe longer ago, 5 years ago, we had to kind of like hit a reset, and okay, took some things from the other sail, like basic geometry and stuff, but it was sort of from zero more or less, and you take lots of things from the other sails that are working well in the range, things like outlines and stuff like that, and then just go through there. And I have to be very thankful for Roberto and the support he's given me in the whole process, because until the last few years, it's been like an almost unlimited budget for development. He's especially in the early days, I'm making like 3 or 4 wave sails the same size at the same time, all like super radically different, just trying stuff, and then like that again, it's just like learning information and putting it all together to create like a solid sort of base. And the same with the race sail, it took a long time, to a lot of work, a lot of modifications, and in the end I think we got something that's pretty good.
Yeah. What do you consider the base of the sail? Like outline, luff curve, seam shaping, and then you kind of adjust the leech and stuff, or how do you...
I think the luff curve is pretty crucial. And in the end, I think it's all really related, because I mean it's all because you can
connected.
all connected. So because if you're missing something somewhere, you can maybe get it by doing something else somewhere else. So it's like putting all those pieces together and working out, like sometimes when you need to do like a big change, or if you just need to sort of modify it in the direction you want to go.
It's funny.
The race sail is definitely the hardest thing. It's like, and I think Thomas once told me, he's like, the more you learn, the less you know. And it's like, it is, because the more you investigate it and you learn something, but then you learn that something then has like more questions coming out of it than
like a knock-on effect. Which is funny because the slalom boards seem to be, I don't want to say the easiest ones, but probably the easiest ones to understand, because there is a flat, in the rocker. While waveboards are pretty much all curves, So then when you have a curve, like you have in a sail, it's all curves, right? There's no straight lines. So when you change something, it affects all the other aspects. Whereas in a slalom board especially, if you put more V behind the fin box, it doesn't change the other parameters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where if you put more laugh curve on the top cam, it just changes the sail so much. It's probably gonna close that button. It's gonna, make the sail stiffer there. It's gonna make, just so many different things. So is that a fair assessment that it's
I think
harder
one of the
sail design than board design somehow, or is it just me?
No, I think for me, like the board is like a solid thing. So it's like you shape it, you make it, you have it, and it's the same. It doesn't change. Whereas like the sail, like not only it's like kind of like this like 3D object, but then with a different mast or different tensions in it, you can change everything, and you can put different bands in it, and it changes. So it's like like a board, you more or less you shape it, you can measure it like exactly, and then that it's going to be the same. You can test it here, you can test it there, and it's always the same board. And whereas like the sail, kind of like somehow it's like a more of a sort of a living animal, if you like, and it depends on there's so many factors involved in it. And for me it's way more complex and way more difficult, I think. But then also it gives you the chance to play with it more. Like if you have a board that's like not working, it's more or less just not working. Whereas like with a sail, there's lots of things you can do to like get it working and keep it all moving forward. So sort of in some ways it's like sort of easier to keep developing and keep moving forward, keep making it better than just like making loads of boards.
So could you spend like 300 days a year designing and testing?
Could I?
Yeah. Say you have unlimited budget, which will never be the case, but if you had, could you?
Yeah. Definitely. I think, especially if you've got unlimited resources, and you've got a good team with you as well. Those two things, like, it's an amazing. You can just keep going and keep going and keep going. And I don't know. I've never done it like that 365 days a year. But I can't think. There's no time until now that I've been like, I'm bored of this. I don't want to do it. It's just like, if I have the opportunity, just want to just keep going forward.
And it's never finished, is it? It's just always now there's this one thing, let's try to improve it without losing what we just gained, which is really hard, because a lot of times you need to compromise something, and this is what
most of the time it's like compromises and moving it one way or the other. And it's one of the things I like really about the race sail. Like, okay, it's super complicated, but then it's somehow like if you have a good sail, it's a good sail. And like the wave sail, you can make a wave sail and maybe one guy will love it, one guy will hate it. And everyone sometimes people are looking for different things, and it's all a bit subjective and a bit more sort of wishy-washy. Whereas like a race sail, while you still have different styles, it's a lot easier just to sort of keep moving forward and trying to make it faster, or trying to make it more powerful, or trying to do whatever you're trying to do. But you've got like these
in the end it's about the result, about the performance.
Yeah.
So no, I just wanted to touch on that, because I had this discussion in the YouTube comments under our podcast with a guy that really pissed me off by saying like, the gear doesn't change, and the brands, they just change graphics and they charge us a bunch of money, but I'm like, man, the gear is improving every year, and I'm testing it, so I know it's really better every year. And if it doesn't get better, we keep the same model for 2 years or 3 years, if we cannot improve it. But if there's a new model, it's not because we want to make money. Actually, putting out a new model probably costs more money than it makes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you need molds, and for sales you need really good quality control, and the designer needs to fly there and check it and all that stuff, and so that kind of one
of the things I think is also like, it's sometimes really hard to, like, you never want to sort of like go back. Like sometimes you can start like messing around with stuff, and then you're sort of changing for the sake of changing. So I don't know, you have a sail that's working really, really well, and you start messing around to try and do something, and maybe you end up making it worse. I think that's the worst thing ever. So, when we got a sail that's working well, we maybe try to improve it. If it doesn't improve, then we're like not going to change it, massively. Like you can always tweak it here and there, like small adjustments, and sometimes it's not like these huge jumps. But then other times you do have these huge jumps. Like this year, our wave sail is like, I would call it a big jump forward. It's, we changed a lot of the batten spacing, and that had lots of benefits. And it is, you always hear, it planes earlier, it goes faster, it turns better. It's like, it's better all around. And like, sometimes that is like a little bit pushing the truth a bit, but then other times it is like that. And I think we got it, like this year we got a new wave board as well, which is like the same thing. It's like, wow, something really, really upgraded. And
I think we as the industry, or as the the brands especially, but also maybe us as people that are somehow involved, should do a better job kind of educating people what sometimes maybe you don't want to share the secret or whatever, but we changed this and this affects that, and really tell the guys, so they don't feel like, I feel like the level of gear knowledge could be higher, around the beaches, you know, like how to rig. And, you know, I see so many people with no downhole and like so much outhole, and, you know, still it's 2020, you know, and
it's a really tough one, like the giving people the right information. And I think also like you can overcomplicate it a bit. So I had a good example actually. I bought some skis like a couple of years ago, and like I ski reasonably well, but I know nothing about skis, like absolutely nothing. I haven't bought a pair of skis in probably 30 years or something. So I was like, okay, I want a pair of skis. And basically I was after kind of like a freestyle wave ski is effectively what it was. And I'm looking at this stuff and they're talking about like side cuts and like arcs and all of this. I was like so lost. And then it kind of like, you sort of step back, and then I looked at our brochure, and, you know, we're talking the same. We're talking about luff curves and hollow leeches. And it's like, you know, actually what the people want to know, like this sail is good if you want to get planing early and have lots of power. This sail is good if you want to go a bit faster. And, you know, like, and actually, I think we often give too much information, and maybe breaking it down to something really simple is actually what the customer needs. So it's like finding
simplify
that
it.
balance.
But also I hate brands saying, like you said, you know, like every year it planes faster. Like, you know, a waveboard cannot plane faster and turn better at the same time. It's almost.
You haven't tried a new one. It does both those things. I promise you.
I mean, it can, because it can turn better of the outline and it can plane better of the rocker. You know? But it's
I know what you mean.
Like, I just wish every time I rock up at the beach, I wouldn't have to answer questions that I feel like the brands could somehow provide with the product. You know, maybe like a rigging manual, or I don't know. It's
really hard. Like we have like rigging manuals with all of that, and I've done like videos, and it's still like, it's really hard to show, you know, to really see until you're there and you're like really pointing out things to people. It's sometimes quite difficult, but it's definitely an area where we all need to improve, I think.
Yeah, I'm still like a idealist in that manner. You know, I'm still not the cynical, you know, been there 20 years person. But
that'll come.
Yeah. Other things that really piss you off about the general windsurfing public or the whole situation in general?
No, I think
Gear's too expensive.
You know, it's a bit.
Gear's too expensive.
Well, yeah, I think that is something. You know, like when I grew up, there was like Bic and Tiga, and Bic especially was this sort of like, you know, super cheap, good quality, cheap brand, and that was like a good entry. You know, like a lot of my first boards were Bics, and my first wave board was a Tiga. I think maybe we're missing that a little bit, but I think with the numbers we have now, it's just impossible to go back to that world. One thing that sort of bugs me, but at the same time, it's what we need to do, is like how we sort of make everything quite extreme all the time, like straight away. Like you have something and straight away you want to make it like the highest performance possible, often at the expense of like kind of user friendliness or whatever. And we try and sell always like the impossible dream, and it's maybe a little bit less now, but you know, I think we've damaged windsurfing a lot in the past by, you know, taking things and kind of making them extreme. Like something like Supercross was like potentially amazing. It was this sort of like all-round discipline, and so if you have a board that's good for Supercross, it's fast, it jumps, it jibes well, it does, you know, it's like that should be a really good board. But then, you know, the marketing is like with helmets and like super aggressive, and it's kind of like, you know, it takes away from what the board should actually be, which should have been, you know, the ultimate sort of fun board. And suddenly it became this like aggressive machine for extreme machine. And, you know, I think that's something where the industry could maybe do it differently, but at the same time, that's what sells. And, you know, like, so.
Yeah, I always wonder what sells, you know, because on one hand, I wouldn't want to see a wave sailing photo shoot done in Poland in
Yeah.
in knee-high waves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what the customer does. But I think it's good to sell dreams, because you watched the Neil Pratt videos. I watched Josh Stone, the Aloha Man, and About Time from Jason Polakau, and this is what I wanted to do, and probably still until this day I'm not even close to doing that, but it's still what I want to do.
Yeah, no, I agree with. I think like sort of selling the dream, but then it's somehow like, I don't know, like in a way you want to sell this extreme wave sailing Jason Polakau board, but then that board shouldn't be that extreme Jason Polakau board. It should be something super easy that everyone can sail. And that's the kind of like the disassociation. I don't really know what the answer is, because, at the same time, if you have this like extreme radical promotion of a board, but actually it's like really, really
dull,
dull, then people go like, oh, this isn't the board that, they're selling, they're false marketing or whatever. And you get all that side of it. And it's like, so I don't think I can't see a way around it, but
there's always going to be the two sides, like one saying, like you say, this was supposed to be radical, and the other one's like, they're, it's too radical, I cannot ride what John Skye is riding, so but I always tell them, whenever we develop a product, we want it to be as easy as possible, especially in slalom. You probably found that out as kind of this slalom newcomer. We should talk about your slalom career, actually. And that we need easy gear, because when you have 8 guys around you and you're flying down, the first reach in Fuerte, which looks flat from your screen, but it's the choppiest thing.
Brutal. Yeah.
It's freaking brutal. And you need to look around to see where the guys are, and you need to unhook and jibe without, slowing down, decelerating too much. It just needs to be easy, So I think there
was a massive jump in the slalom boards about 4 years ago or something like that, where, I remember from one year to the next, like I had a board that was like, I was on the edge of dying the whole time and just trying to like stand on the thing and control it. And then suddenly this board was just so easy and just like eating chop and going through it all. And the gear now is just like so easy compared. When like 30 years ago, whatever it was, that I first slalom sailed, I remember like just dying on these like low nosed like F2 Sputniks and stuff like that. And now like the gear is just so easy.
So now again we get to this point where I tell a lot of guys that can go back and forth and jibe, like, you should buy slalom gear, because you're gonna have a lot more fun. But then it is a little bit less user friendly, because, for instance, if you drop the sail, you have like 200 liters of water inside your sleeve, So it's quite tricky.
I think the thing with the slalom gears is like the setup is so crucial. So I've sold some slalom gear to some guys around, local guys, and they're really struggling, and I go and see it, and they've just got the balance is all wrong, and I know that sail is super easy, but they got maybe their boom too low or whatever, they're not enough downhaul, the boom too low, there's just they're getting pulled forward and they can't get the board to lift and they're having a nightmare. And it's like, whereas like if you give them your gear or my gear set up, they'll just jump on it and go like, wow, this is like super easy. And that's kind of like, I think that's the skill of slalom, and that's what you guys do so well, that maybe you don't really appreciate how well you do it, if you know what I mean. So I'm sure like if some guy jumps on your gear, like as long as they got an okay level, they'll probably be flying, close to as quick as you. But if you sold them your gear, they probably wouldn't get that set up so well, and so maybe they'd be struggling. And but that's something that's
that's why I think we have this responsibility to educate, and I think more and more competitors are giving clinics, and I think it's generally headed in the right direction. But still, it's like you say, you know, like I have no clue what my snowboard is good for. Like, you know what I mean? Like I want to go in the powder, but I don't know if it's actually, I mean, it is supposed to be a free ride snowboard, but yeah. Or if I buy a bike, I'm totally clueless. So for sure it's that. Is it fair to say that designing is almost the least of what a sail designer does? Meaning QC, checking the factories, materials, graphics.
Yeah, I think Cookie covered it really well in his video, that it's like, you know, the whole thing. And I'm not really involved in the selling side of it, thankfully, but sort of like I cover like the whole production from, you know, the designing obviously, and then putting it into production, ordering the materials on time, sourcing the materials, like making changes, like something like like the EVA, you know, like an EVA part in the clue or in the head, like takes time to get it all ready and to approve it. And there's so many things. And like I talked about it before, like the graphical element, it's like super important. And especially like in a brand like ROD, where, you know, I think the image and the graphic is quite a crucial part of the company. And it's something that probably Roberto, you know, on the big picture, he puts it quite high in his priorities. And, you know, luckily we've got like a really good in-house graphic team. So that whole side of it, and it's not so simple with the sail to do a graphic. It's not like with a board, you've just got a blank canvas and you can do whatever you want. If you want to draw a big flower on it, you can draw a big flower on it. But with the sail, you have to kind of like integrate a graphic into a panel layout. And, you know, you don't want to start just like chucking seams in randomly just to make the sail look pretty. You want to try and keep it all functional, but looking good, and mix in the graphic and everything. And that's what's, you know, sometimes like, you know, pretty important and quite tricky as well.
From the idea in your head to the sail being on the shelf in the shop, what is the process?
Well,
and how long it takes?
Well, it depends, like, because if you're starting from 0, then it's a good 2-year project. But like what we're mostly doing is taking a sail, and even before it's in the public's hands, I'm already working on like modified versions, prototypes for the next year, things like that. And then, so there's the whole design side of it, like trying to make it better, testing it, getting different people to test it, which is something that's really important as well. Because I think if you're just on your own too much, you can sometimes just go off in a different direction. So it's important to get other people to test it, to try other stuff, see where you are, see where you're positioned. And then I'd say sort of more or less a year before it's released is when you probably start looking at the graphical element, which sometimes it's just small changes, other times it's like bigger changes. And then within that you start, so often the first prototypes will just be with like the old graphic, and, you know, you're trying things. And then when you start to get like an idea of where you're going with the design side of it, you start integrating the graphic into it to see how things will look. And we've had sails that look like terrible, you know, mixing colors, and you get them, you see them on a computer and you're like, oh, that's beautiful. And then you get it in real life and you're like, oh my God, that's hideous. And so that whole process then carries on. And then, yeah, once that's all starting to get together, then you start to make the approval sales. And that's where you really like get really into all the details. And like normally go to China for that, and you just spend a couple of weeks in the factory going through everything, like taking thousands of pictures, normally talking with Roberto quite a lot and saying like, you know, what do you think of this little element here and this, and trying to put the whole package together to make, you know, in the end, a really good product. And
how is it in the factory?
Then,
are these guys windsurf? I mean, Cookie touched on this, because, you know, when you're a kid growing up, you think it's like windsurfers making gear for windsurfers, but actually it's just, you know, the guy that sews your sail, he could be sewing Nike shoes the next
Yeah.
month, you know? So how is
Yeah.
that?
No, I mean the workers that are doing the sewing, like, I think they got no idea what they're sewing. But what's really good, particularly in our sail factory, is that the main guys in charge, the two owners of the factory are ex windsurfers, kiters. I mean, they still kite a little bit, but you know, that's their background. So they know the sports, they know them well, they know what everything is. And the guy that I work most closely with, he's super into windsurfing. Like, he's, you know, the intermediate, I think he's kind of like working on his jibes and stuff like that, but he's so into it. So every time I go there and we go for dinner, he's just hammering me with like questions like, do you take your foot out here or that? And it's so good to see, because, you know, in the end, he's the guy that really transforms, you know, the design and everything into the product. And, you know, it gives you so much confidence in the factory that they really know what everything is. And there's like other factories other suppliers we have where they don't have that, and you're just like constantly scared that, you know, what they might change something because it's much easier for production and saves them money, but makes it completely useless, and you sort of never quite trust them. Whereas like in our sail factory, which we produce quite a lot of stuff in, you know, the guy knows exactly what's going on, and it's going to come out, and it's going to be perfect. So that's makes life a bit less stressful, to be honest.
Yeah. What is like the holy grail of sail designing? Is it like a guy coming up to you at the beach saying it's the best sail ever? Is it like winning a world title with your sail? Somebody winning a world title on your sail? Like, what would be your dream?
Well, so far I have another world title on a sail, so I don't know that one. That would be pretty good. We had Musa got vice world champion on the sail,
and you got vice world speed champion.
Yeah,
vice European or vice world.
Vice world champion, yeah. On our own sail. So yeah, no, I think for me, like, the nicest thing is when you get like really positive comments, and it's quite rare, because like, if you think about whatever you do in life, if you buy a product and it doesn't work, you're like, oh, I bought this and it doesn't work, and so it's like you tend to get much more negative feedback than positive. So when you do get like positive feedback, it's like so nice. And I think that's for me one of the nicest things, when people say like, oh, I got this sail, it's amazing, it's like working so well, I'm really happy. And that for me, I think, is the holy grail. And until I win a world title, you know, I think a slalom world title would be pretty high up there. But
yeah, which you need riders for. And that brings us to the kind of maybe shifting directions a little bit. Slightly, you had Cyril Musulmani, and I think that relationship was quite hard for many different reasons. And maybe they kind of burned themselves a little bit because they were flirting. RD was never, well, it used to be like a racing brand with boards, like an amazing racing brand, still relatively, you know, few years ago, Antoine winning and whatever. And then they decided they want to do the same with the sails. And then that didn't really work out.
I think
and now, like, it seems like they might not chase that anymore. And, you know, how does that feel that you put all this effort into it, and now you don't, you know, now that you're probably right there on the doorstep of being, you know, having really competitive gear on the highest level, you know, now the program kind of shifted, you know?
Yeah, I think it was pretty much like just bad timing, I think, with because I think it was three years ago or 4 years ago, like, we had a big meeting with Roberto and like the sales guy Dylan, and they were like, okay, we want to go all in racing with the sales and everything. It's like, okay, and we kind of like had like a sort of more or less a sort of 2-year project, you know, to get everything under control, and then really push. And unluckily, really, like, that's when the whole foiling thing came along, and foiling just messed I mean, it's wonderful. It's the best thing that's happened to our sport in years. But from a racing point of view, I think it messed everything up really, really badly. Like, so suddenly no one really knew where it was going to go. Were we going slalom foil? Were we going course foil? Were we going upwind, downwind? What were we doing? And I think, personally, I think that rubbed off a little bit on the customer. You know, I think the slalom market for years, you had like your typical national rider, your kind of like amateur racer that would probably renovate their boards every year. You know, they buy their 3 new boards or 2 new boards, whatever. Each year they buy their boards and their sails. They sell the old ones, they get the new ones, they sell the old ones, they sell, and it's like kind of like, that's what ticks over in the racing world. And then my feeling is that when foiling came along, suddenly they were really reluctant to invest all that money maybe in like a light wind slalom board when they were like unsure if light wind slalom would exist next year. And I think that had like a sort of, in terms of from a selling point of view, from an industry point of view, it was a sort of like a negative. And certainly with the way that foiling, the racing discipline, has sort of developed, we started trying to follow it. And you know, there was with the rules, I think they had like 2 years ago, it was going to be upwind, downwind with 9.0 as the main size sail, as the biggest sail, sorry. So we start a project developing that. We had these 2 9.0s. One was like a light wind one was a strong wind one. They were going pretty well, pretty happy. And then the rules suddenly changed, and it was like, no, actually, we're going to have 10 meters, the biggest. So like all the work that went into that light wind 9.0 was just like totally wasted, and we just threw away, like, you know, in the end, a couple of thousand, just like boom. So then we start working on the 10.0, and then suddenly they go like, no, actually, we're going to go slalom foiling. And more or less at that point, Roberto was just like, you know, it's just
fuck this, yeah.
But yeah, more or less. He's like, you know, and this is, you know, you're spending loads of money on a 10.0 upwind, downwind foil sail that in the end you're going to sell 10, or, you know what I mean? It's a really, really limited market.
Yeah, that's why PWA went away from this. And this is what the course racing purists don't really understand.
I mean, from a personal point of view, I would love to, you know, like when I think back to all the like the race board days, and you know, I really like upwind, downwind racing. It's really interesting. So I'd like to try it, but I think as for a market and from a, you know, production point of view, it doesn't make much sense. And I think now that everything's a bit more settled, it looks like now we've got the discipline, the slalom discipline. And Roberto this year sort of was like, okay, right, you know, he went from like kind of, you know, really just step back and not do much to like, okay, let's do it. Let's have a nice base. And I think as soon as it settles and it's really clear, you know, what the gear is going to be, how it's all going to work, then I'm pretty sure he's going to go all in again. And probably, you know, that's when we make the next step up.
Yeah, but don't you think throughout that transition, if you had a rider who was really, you know, in the thick of things and really like a progressive, you know how some people are reluctant to pick it up, all the new stuff. And some people, like, you know, Swifty needs to have the newest iPhone, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some people, they just need to try the newest stuff. Like winging comes out and you have 2 groups. This is going to dissolve very soon. But right now you have 2 groups. One that I have already been winging and are trying it. And the second one, which is getting smaller, is like the people that are like, nah, you know, this is crap, this new thing, you know, the reluctant people.
Yeah.
You know? So if you have
early adopters and
if you have a rider that is maybe on the foil committee on the PWA and is really pushing you, is texting you every day, you know, and
for sure if it was, you know, if money was no object, for sure, for me, I would absolutely love that, you know, like, well, you know, I spoke to you a lot about you joining, or, you know, like someone like yourself would be, you know, a dream to work with. But yeah, it's you know, the whole building a team thing is really complicated, and there's so many factors, and in the end, it's nothing really to do with me. You know, I have an input. I can say who I want, who I don't want, but in the end, it's nothing to do with me. So, you know,
it's a funny little circle, because you can't, like you say with racing, I think you have to go all in, because you can't really have a product without a good team, or without at least one amazing rider. And then you need ideally another rider. I mean, ideally it would be the same rider, but kind of doesn't work that way. To perform on the product, you know. So to have the product, you need the team, and to have the promotion, you need the team, and then the team will break your balls about the product being not good enough always, like always pushing and pushing and pushing. So in the end, I think to sell racing, it's like a program. It's like a whole program, you know. That's why I think a lot of brands, they get like these performance managers or something like that, you know, to kind of just look over that whole picture, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Roberto knows that, because if you look back when we were like dominating the slalom with the boards, you know, we had like Arnon, who was doing like the development, and that was his main focus, and he was obviously doing really, really well as well. But then we also had Antoine, who was the winner, and you know, I think, I don't know too much, I wasn't too involved in like the development, but I don't think that Antoine had much say in the development. His job was to win races on it, and Arnon's job was to make that board, and Finnion's as well. Finnion's job was to make a board for Antoine to win on, and that was kind of like his goal, if you like.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that we'll go back to that once everything settles, and once it gets clearer, and once we see who's doing well as well, because like, you know, you can invest a lot of money in a guy, and you know, it turns out that they can't even foil, or they're not interested in foiling or whatever, and then it goes, so you just don't know. So I think at the moment it's you know, we're still moving forward, and we'll see what's going to happen and where it's all going to end up, and then go all in, I think.
Yeah. So except for that,
I'm knocking on your door then.
Yeah. Well,
you'll be by that point, you'll be like the guy dominating everything. You'll be the Antoine.
Price is going up every day, my friend.
I know. But like, you get what you pay for. So
after this podcast, 1-0 more.
Yeah. Wow.
Back to being serious. Except for, you know, you kind of keeping working as a designer and hopefully having success with your product. What does the future hold? Like, you think about it much? Just keep doing
not really. Like, at the moment, I think I'm loving what I'm doing. It's really, really, really a dream of, since I was a kid at 13 to be doing what I'm doing. And you know, we got like lots of, like, our compact project is something that's, you know, potentially, like, for me, the biggest innovation in windsurfing. Like, you know, a whole rig that fits in a backpack.
I need to call our producers whether you can plug your advert in there if you're supporting, if RD is supporting Windsurfing.TV or not.
No, I don't think we are, and I think I'm a bit sad, because I think what Ben does and what you do is amazing. So, but Ben knows that. I buy him beers instead. That's like my contribution. But like, I think there's so many things still to go, and it's like, you know, what we've been talking about now is mostly sort of like the racing thing and all of that. But then, you know, what we're doing on the other side with the compact thing is, like, you know, potentially changing how windsurfing can be for, you know, the general public, the guy that, you know, goes sailing after work and has all his gear in the back of his car ready to go and things like that. So there's always something to keep, like, driving forward. It's not always pure performance. It can be, you know, other innovations. And at the moment, I'm still, like, super stoked to do it all. And I love windsurfing. I love all parts of windsurfing. Still get stoked just to plane on a free ride gear, or go on slalom gear, or go wave sailing. I'd like to do more freestyle, but everything hurts too much at the moment, so it's like kind of tricky. But yeah. So if I can keep doing what I'm doing and keep pushing forward and keep learning more, then yeah, it will be good.
You also got 2 amazing kids. obviously, for those who don't know, John's wife is Naira Alonso, a mega ripper from
I was gonna put all her trophies behind me, like in the backdrop.
Claim they're yours.
Claim them all, yeah. She's got loads. So like,
you got two amazing kids, daddy and mommy, both mommy and daddy professional windsurfers. Are the kids gonna go into windsurfing?
I don't know. It's we're struggling really with like the whole balance of like opportunity versus pushing, if that makes sense. So like if you don't ever give your kids opportunities to do something, they're never going to do it. But then you don't want to just keep pushing them into it. So we're having like a fine balance on that, but we're definitely erring more towards the relaxed side. Like my little boy, who's 5.5, he's the same age as Swifty's kid and also Class's kid, Class Foggett. They both got kids pretty much like they're all born within a week or something. And like Swifty's like his upbringing was like he was just like pushed full windsurfing. Like, I mean, he loves it, so it's all good. And his kid, like, I think he was surfing out of Kanaha at 6 months old on a sup, and you know, he's probably paddling into Jaws as we speak. And Class's kid, I think he said he was windsurfing on his lake and almost planing. And so those two are miles ahead. But you know, like our kids, they go surfing in front of the house like every other day, and they've been on windsurf stuff. I wouldn't say they're like they can do it or they're hooked on it, but you know, if they're into it, we'll obviously support them. But yeah, for the moment, just enjoying life with them. And
maybe they're gonna be late starters like daddy, you know. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I think they say the sort of optimum age to start is like about 8 or 9 or something. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been 2 hours, but we still got to do our little slow fire section. So yeah, let's see how you do there. I should do some test or something, like some score.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm like your biggest fan. I've been watching this podcast since the first one. I'm there like every Wednesday waiting for when are you going to release it? When are you going to release it? Because
I remember one night you sent me a text because I forgot to click publish. I did all the like Ben does some of the stuff, and then I write like the description and the title and whatever, and then I need to press publish. It just all goes automatically to all the platforms, but I need to just press publish, and I forgot to do that. And I got your text like 9 in the evening. I'm like, fuck, forgot that. So thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been listening to all the questions. I had lots of time to think about.
So you're prepared. Okay. What are your pet peeves?
More prepared than some. Like I see some that my pet peeves. This one, I think, injustice. Like when things are like really, really unfair is like, I find that really, really hard to deal with. Like,
yeah. 3 apps you can't live without.
Sadly, it's probably mail, because it allows me to basically be constantly working, even when I'm at the beach or doing other stuff. Probably WhatsApp, and then a weather one, which, for argument's sake, Wind Guru.
I might take that question out because it's just same thing all the time.
Yeah.
How many times a day do you pee your wetsuit?
Used to be a lot, then it was none, and now it's coming back again. But I'm always in like a shorty, so most of the time I just like piss out the bottom.
Quite.
I did find like I used to when I go like drive 2 hours to the sea, spend all day pissing in my wetsuit, and then get in the car, put the heater on, and then that stink of piss was like used to be so horrible. So I actually stopped for quite a while, like, you know, because just like the 2 hours in a car or more, just like that. Wow. Yeah.
Do you ever? That's a special Skyboy one. Do you ever do number 2?
No, I haven't done. I've heard lots of stories, but
yeah,
I did
any.
No.
I
got one, like a good friend when I was younger. He was like, was a bit younger than me. He was like basically when they were growing up, it was like Ross Williams, like nemesis. The two of them were like winning everything, and he did like we had like a round Hailing Island marathon, and I think he got halfway round and he just had to like just shit in his wetsuit and carry on the race and then rinse out after. So
Was that?
what's his name? Johnny Gould, I think. Or yeah.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
he stopped windsurfing. He was amazing. Like, he was a really good talent. Yeah.
Aside from peeing the wetsuit, what's your guilty pleasure?
I think beer and chocolate, probably.
Yeah. Your top 5 windsurfers of all time.
This is the one I've been like thinking the most about. This is like, I think it's a brilliant question, and I think the only way to answer it is from a personal point of view. So like my number one would definitely be Bjorn. Like when I was growing up, he was just like dominating everything. All that, you know, I told you that the 2 Neil Pride videos I used to watch all the time. He was like the king of them. He was doing the biggest jumps and everything. So he would definitely be number one. The second one would be Nick Baker, because he was the one that sort of somehow gave me the hope that it was possible. Because when I was growing up and I was like into racing on the lake, there was so much emphasis on being big and tall and everything. And I even had, you know, like the classic wall chart on the door in, you know, on the house where you put where you're growing. And on mine, I had it marked at the top. Like I think I had like Bjorn's height marked on the top. It's like that was my goal. That's where I was trying to get to. And I remember I read somewhere that eating like seaweed made you grow. So like we used to have like seaweed from the Chinese, and I'd be like stuffing it down trying to go. I never made it. So then Nick was like, first of all, he was like my kind of height, my kind of build. Secondly, he was doing really, really good on the World Cup, and he was from England. So the heart that, you know, put those things together, and it was like, okay, this is possible to kind of to go that way. Then the other one will probably be Goya, I'd say. And then Cao Lee was like a massive, I think he's the most underrated person I think there is. And then the number 5 would go, it's kind of a split between Philip and Ricardo, who are like 2 just absolute freaks that I've watched like kind of develop and just do things that like mind-blowing. Both of them, like Ricardo, I've seen him do shit that it's just like, how's he doing that? And the same with Philip. So those 2 kind of in one.
Yeah. Okay, so most underrated goes to Cowley, or you have another one?
No, Cowley. I think KP had a good shout with himself, to be honest. I think he's pretty underrated for what he did. But I think, like, listening to this, like, how many times did Cowley make it into the top 5 of people's things? Like, once or twice, maybe, like, with Browsey.
Yeah, Browsey, you mentioned him.
Like, sure. You know, I heard everyone... Yeah, I think everyone talks, you know, they say, like, Polakau, when he came along, he changed wave sailing. Like, Cowley did that, but, like, 4 or 5 times, you know, like...
Multi-fins.
The short board thing.
Yeah.
No, but even before that, like when I first started, when I first stayed with him, and at that time everyone was on like, you know, 8.0 was your wave board, or 8.2, which is like 245, you know, or 250.
That's more, I think, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And like, and he came along and he was like riding these really, really short boards back when he was like with Nash, like on custom quattros, but like super short. And you know, he kind of led the way with that, and he was just went his own way. And in the end, everyone followed then with the twin fins, then with then quad fins. He did it with sails. He was the first one with 4-batten sail. Then he was the first one with 3-batten sail. And, you know, I think if he was still competing now, I'm sure he would have, you know, would be somewhere else, because he's like sort of, yeah, his sight into the future was like amazing, I think.
Yeah, I think he just never gave a shit, you know, like just didn't seek the publicity, didn't seek credit. You know?
Yeah, like
never really released a movie also. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, probably.
Yeah, you know, I think he's probably, for me, he's influenced wave sailing, you know, Polakar was before my time, really. I don't know what the changes he did, but
yeah. I think the lines we're drawing now is a lot. Yeah, I remember. Just happened to be in Cabo Verde for the '07 contest, for the epic one.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't there for the contest. I was just there, on the trip, and the contest happened. I remember cheering for Kauli because he just looked different. I don't know what it was. I couldn't break it down then. I was 15, but it just looked, yeah.
And when you add to that as well, he was the first one to do the push forward, and he took like a lot of the freestyle stuff, and he was the one that put it in the waves. Like, I think he was he initiated so much stuff.
Too bad I did my top 5 already.
Yeah.
Okay. Foil freestyle, yes or no? No elaborating. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Scares the shit out of me, but yeah.
Obstacles in slalom.
Definitely.
Beach starts in slalom.
Definitely.
One spot you'd have to sail for the rest of your life every day.
Hook keeper, I think, just because it's got a mix of everything.
Worst check-in story or excess baggage bill?
Oof, we had the worst one. We did like a around the world trip, me and Naira, and we at the time there was like a really cheap deal. You could get like a round the world ticket, so we'd go South Africa, Perth, and then Hawaii, and then home, and it was like more or less the same price as like just going to South Africa and Maui or something like that. So anyway, we set off with 2 board bags each, like for free check-in. And then I think in Australia, I picked up 6 boards from Patrick, and Naira picked up some sails from Severn, because she was sponsored by Severn. Then we went to Maui, and we had all the photo shoots, and we ended up like, I got a new set of sails for that, and Naira got some new boards. And we ended up like coming back. We had so much stuff coming back. And we went to the check-in, and we go like, oh yeah, we got like 2 sets of windsurf gear. And the guy comes down, and he just runs his hand down the side of each board bag and goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You got like 12 boards, and then just like put like, I think it was 1,500, and that was just to get from Maui to Honolulu, where in theory we would then have to recheck in. Like. And we were like, oh no, and we were begging. I ended up like leaving a board behind, and I think we paid 1,200 in the end. But luckily that then got all the way through to London, so it wasn't quite so bad.
Not so bad. I thought everybody's gonna have like nightmare stories, but in the end it's like always €1,000 or 2, and that's it, which is a lot of money, of course. But
my first ever proper big long trip to Australia, I'd only ever done trips to Canaries, and from the UK, you could just take your board bags, like 50 kilos, and not even worry about it. And so I turned up at the airport for like 6 weeks in Australia, and I packed like everything, and they weigh it all, and they go like, right, so that would be £5,000, please. And I was like, what? And they're like, 5,000. And I just got like the gold card, it's the first time I'd flown with. I was like, I've got this. And they went, oh, sorry, sir, I didn't realize you had that. Oh, sorry, sir. Okay, wait. Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't realize. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that changes everything. Okay, that'll be 2,500. And I was like, oh my God. And then I ended up like cargoing like a bunch of stuff. So I like emptied out the board bag, and then I had like whatever it was like 40 kilos free. So I put 40 kilos in a board bag of all the stuff I really needed urgently, and then shipped the rest in a boom bag by cargo. And then I suddenly, when I got that bag like 2 weeks after I arrived, and I suddenly realized it was just full of shit that I didn't need, and all that, And so after that, I kind of learned a bit better how to pack and travel.
Who's your worst competitor?
Swifty by a million miles. At one point we had I think we finished at like 18-2 to him in heats, and just I had this like, I mean, he's just someone that can compete so well, like especially in these early days. So the first flacker he ever did was in the heat against me, and he beat me. The second flacker he ever did was in the next round in the heat against me, and he beat me. and that's just kind of how it's been. And like we've had heats where we've come off the wall and we're like, he's just like, oh, I had the worst heat ever, and I'm like, oh, I had the worst heat ever, and he just pips it by half a point. Or like, oh, I had the sickest heat, and he goes, oh, so did I, and it's like he pips it by half a point. So definitely my nemesis.
Amazing. You get $1 million in cash, you need to spend it in 24 hours. What do you buy?
Really boring, because it's the stage of life I'm at. I just buy loads of properties and then rent them out or resell them.
Loads of properties for $1 million.
Around here, you buy loads of properties for that.
Okay.
Like two or three nice places, maybe more.
Last but not least, who do you want to hear on the podcast?
Cowley, probably.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a good one.
Should probably contact him finally. Yeah.
Oh, and Bjorn as well. I'd love to hear Bjorn.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I don't think Bjorn's so keen. I don't think he's
No.
so keen to talk. He's not not a.
I think
but mate,
I think what you're doing is amazing, and it's like creating like a history of the sport, which I think we're missing a little bit. So
definitely
keep it up and try and get more and more people.
Yeah, this is why I do it, because I would like to listen to things like this, and if I would be even more stoked if somebody else did it than when I do it, because when I do it, I'm not going to listen to myself for 2 hours, But so but it's cool.
You can listen to yourself forever, can't you?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
All right, it's gone dark wherever you are, and
it's like the Northern Lights are.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Skye boy. Thanks a lot.
Cool.
I guess I see you in the Canaries in the winter, hopefully, and we'll talk some real shit. You kind of left some out here.
Nah.
But I get it. You're old. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cheers, mate. I appreciate it.
Cool. All right. Cheers. Keep up the good work. Ciao.
So there you go, Skye boy. He's an interesting chap. He's done a lot. I grew up obviously wave sailing with him on the British scene, and he is an all-round nice guy. Maybe voted nicest guy in windsurfing. I reckon he'd be right up there if the poll was out there. Give us a thumbs up if you like that episode. Obviously, as usual, let us know in the comments below. Now, I do hear a lot of people say we need more women. We are asking, but we're getting denied at the moment, so hopefully there are some coming. Don't worry. But like I said, feel free to comment below who you want to hear. Maybe that will tease them in. I'm going to put links to other podcasts up there. If you want to chip in and help these podcasts to be produced, because they do cost money, you can chip in some beer money, which means you're a member, which means you get a chance to win hats and all this stuff, and support us here at Windsurfing.TV. Lockdown is happening in a few countries. You're going to need us. I said it in Sunday, but maybe you're going to need us, and we'll go into overdrive. We've got a few good plans to keep you guys happy and keep the spirits and going, basically. So stay tuned to the channel. Thanks for watching.